Title of this video is Self-Isolation in Avoidance. My name is Georges Verbena, and this is another video on avoidant attachment. And what does it mean to self-isolate? Why do people do this? So what is the need that's being fulfilled? And why is this a defense mechanism? And what are the consequences of this action? So you'll find that out in this video. Of course, my opinion on self-isolation I'm going to give you just at the start of this video. Self-isolation is a way to cope, just like alcohol, just like a drug, just like an escape. It's a form of escape because it means you don't have to deal with something. And of course, when you go into mental health and you investigate the issue of self-isolation, you will find that people say it's a reaction to overwhelm. So when somebody is feeling overwhelmed and they're unable to self-regulate, they will use this as a coping mechanism just like any other drug. So therefore, if somebody engages in self-isolating behavior, that person just doesn't know any better, just doesn't know what else to do. So in this video, hopefully I can give you some suggestions if you know somebody or if you are somebody who self-isolates frequently. Now, I'm not talking about people who self-isolate once in a blue moon because they just came out of a relationship, they're recovering from a breakup. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a survival pattern. Something that somebody does over and over and over again. So, first of all, what triggers self-isolation? Of course, overwhelm. That means somebody, of course, self-isolation is always about people, somebody triggers you, and your response to the trigger is to not respond, to do nothing. But because there is an unspoken expectation that if somebody talks to you, somebody wants something from you, that you have to respond. Self-isolation is a way to avoid having to respond to other people. It's a way to avoid being emotionally available for other people. This is why it's a pattern primarily in people who are emotionally unavailable. If you are somebody who does this, you are, by definition, an emotionally unavailable person. Because what are you trying to avoid? You are avoiding a reaction in other people. A reaction triggered by you expressing your emotions. If you are emotionally unavailable for your own emotions, your own triggers, your own needs with somebody, you will self-isolate to avoid being available, to avoid being present. Why would somebody do this? Because they learned in childhood that every time you express your trigger, you express your needs, you express your emotions, the other people is going to abandon you or try to shut you down. So people who are emotionally unavailable, they got shut down as a child. So now they shut down themselves as an adult. This is why self-isolation is like a demonic possession, because it's driven by introjects. It's driven by a pattern, a wiring of the brain. Your brain got wired as a child to associate self-isolation with self-regulation, to associate abandonment, self-abandonment, and dying, because it's a form of dying, it's a form of playing dead, right? Because if you go into nature and you look into the animal realm, when do animals self-isolate? When they play dead, when they try to avoid a predator, somebody who is trying to hurt them. Self-isolation is always going with the assumption they are out to hurt me. They are my enemies. They are not to be trusted. But what kind of an attitude is that? To go through life assuming, expecting, being almost sure, responding and behaving as if everybody is your enemy. This is why I talked in my previous videos about emotional unavailability. Check that out if you haven't already. This is snake consciousness. To self-isolate is to automatically, I don't give a shit what excuse you have, it's automatically assume that everybody is your enemy, everybody's a snake, they're going to betray you, they're going to hurt you, they're not to be trusted. Getting your needs met is impossible. It's a self-defeating prophecy. So it's like, they're gonna abandon me anyways, so let's abandon myself by not being here. So it's about power. It's about control. If I don't allow the other person to hurt me, I have control. So I can avoid being responsible for getting hurt. It's about avoiding accountability. Because if I'm vulnerable, if I'm expressing my needs, if I'm expressing my emotions, if I'm being present, if I'm being vulnerable, that gives the other person power over me. The ability to hurt me is power. So it's a power play, which in essence is no different from mind games. This is why I refer to this as a fantasy defense. I talked about it in my other videos. Emotional unavailability, just like self-isolation as a coping mechanism, is about maintaining a facade, a delusional false reality in which you are pretending that you are untouchable by being unavailable, which in essence you are untouchable because you're not there. So it's about maintaining power. I have the power to hurt me. Nobody else has that power. So I'm going to hurt me. I'm going to self-isolate. I'm going to abandon myself. So I'm the one who's doing the hurting, nobody else. But it's a lose-lose situation. It's just a perpetual double bind. Like if you go online, check out the video, A Kafka Trap, by Hermit. Kafka Trap is a double bind situation in which you have a lose-lose situation. If I express my needs, I'm gonna get hurt. If I don't express my needs, I'm gonna be hurt by being dead. So I will just refer to the safe method, to the predictable method, to what I've always done because it's a habit, it's human AI, I've done this before, so I'm gonna do it again. I've done this in childhood, so because I'm driven by the ego, that means I'm driven by the reptile brain. Reptile brain is ego. Reptile brain is trauma. I have been hurt, so I will react to that hurt by doing the same thing like a loop, like I'm a robot, over and over and over again. So this is what is behind self-isolation. Now remember, I'm not talking about people who self-isolate once or twice in the blue moon. Like, who gives a shit if you self-isolate once? If you self-isolate repeatedly, like all the time, then maybe you should play tarot cards and you should ask the cards what they say about you. Because chances are you will pick the Hermit in the tarot. Now, if you pick the Hermit on yourself, you know you are living out a survival pattern. Now, the Hermit, as an archetypal energy, represents what people are doing when they go into self-isolation. The Hermit represents Virgo in astrology. Virgo is about Mercury. Mercury is about air. It's about communication. So the anxiety, the stress, the nervousness is around words. Words that I say which are going to have consequences. I don't want those consequences because I don't want to be rejected. I don't want to be abandoned. So I will not be there. I will disappear before you disappear on me. to be flighty, to be sneaky, to be in my shadow, is to play a shadow dance in which I am engaging in shadow projection, which means I'm projecting my childhood pathological caregivers onto every single person that I encounter, so I can feel like I have some kind of control and predictability by self-isolating. Because if I don't self-isolate, I have no idea what's going to happen. The assumption is they're going to abandon me, but actually I don't know. So I have no control. There's no predictability. The ego, aka the reptile brain, doesn't like that. Reptile brain needs everything to be predictable, which of course is perfectly reasonable, but you cannot grow in that mindset. So it is to get out of victim mentality into growth mentality. If, nobody is to be trusted, everybody's a snake consciousness. If I'm in that state, it's not working for me, which is why usually the survival pattern doesn't stop until somebody hits rock bottom and they are abandoned by a significant person and they're finally realizing, I guess the soul self-sabotage really is sabotaging me. It really is not working for me. And this is when the person finally feels the desire to change. And, it doesn't have to take a crisis. It doesn't have to take a tower moment to stop the pattern. If you want to stop self-isolating, all you have to do is to be comfortable with the unknown, with not knowing whether they're going to abandon you or not, realizing that's not your responsibility. If you make yourself responsible for whether or not you're being abandoned, you are setting yourself up for failure, because that's the other person's responsibility. Essentially, self-isolation is about control freakery. It's about being perfect in your interactions, to be rigid, to be heavily armored, to be in a box. And this box is suffocating. This box is just like a freeze response, like playing dead in animals and nature. Nothing grows there. It's a swamp of stagnation that slowly decays your body from within as it shuts down your hormones, it cramps your muscles, it inflames your body, as it rots you like a rotting of the tissues from the inside out, as you are fragmented and you are split from parts of yourself because you're putting on a facade, a fantasy defense. You're trying to maintain a false delusional reality in which you are always the one who's going to abandon you, and nobody gets a chance to do that because nobody is to be trusted. And snake consciousness is all that you ever know. So you will stay in the swamp. And in the swamp, you are sitting in mucus, a lymphatic stagnation of the tissues, a kind of shutting down of the hormone system. It shuts down connection, shuts down oxytocin production, dopamine production, serotonin production, well, not dopamine, but all the other hormones that are about human connection, that are about cuddling, love, relaxation, rest. All the goodies that you will never receive because you choose to engage in entropy. And like I said before in a previous video, something that I've heard in a game, apathy is death. And self-isolation is a state of apathy. To be apart from others, to be split, to be fragmented, to be engaged in evil, which means you are opposite to life. You are in a death cult, a perpetual state of worshipping the devil, because you are addicted to a state of entropy which feels safe and comfortable because it's the only state that you find to be predictable, and you are unwilling to abandon a predictable, easy to foresee, controllable, neat, boxed in, suffocating, safe life. So when safety is an illusion, and it is abandoned because there's no such thing as safety when you are in a swamp, all that you have is control. But who's really in control is not you, but the ego, aka reptile brain. A part of your brain that is responsible to shut down your higher brain functions, to make it impossible for you to think clearly, to come up with logical fallacies, vile rationalizations and justifications for why you need your space, your need for independence. Because all you're interested in is to minimize anxiety and maximize pleasure. To be in pleasure consciousness, to be in snake consciousness, is to engage in evil. But of course, to self-reflect, to accept that this is your state of being, is to meet the guilt, the shame, the low self-esteem, the self-hatred that has been bubbling up for years and years in a swamp of stagnation because you've been perpetually suppressing it, keeping it down, pushing it down, so you can maintain the facade of function, like a robot, like a machine. You're trying to get by every day, day by day, throughout your relationship. You're just trying to survive. In this survival mode, your body is producing cortisol and adrenaline every single day, keeping you in the so-called drug trap, in which you are engaged in this perpetual state of restlessness, trying to find some kind of relaxation, some kind of calm in the eye of the storm, which is your weed, your alcohol, your sex, your validation, your whatever the fuck you're doing, just to get the edge off. Because you're not dealing with the edge. The edge is dealing with you. You're not dealing with control. Control is controlling you, which is no different from a demonic possession. A state of resignation. A state in which you are no longer in charge of yourself. The armor, the human AI, the roboticism, the reptile consciousness, evil is in control of your actions. And you continue, even in this state of misery and depression, to come up with more and more rationalizations, more justifications for why it is too difficult to change. So if you know somebody like that, let me know in the comments below. So now I'm going to check out the comments here. They can never truly open their heart for long. Can you imagine living that way? Your heart and voice is shut down. Can I imagine what it's like to be in apathy? To be in a state of indifference? To be in mucus? To be swimming in mucus? To be in entropy? Yeah, of course. Because I've been there. You see, I've also been abused. And I used to be actually avoidant because I suffered from a lot of emotional neglect. So I learned to shut down as a teenager. How many years ago? Many years ago. How did I come out of that? When I realized that I was becoming a monster. I lived my life in absurdity, some kind of twisted, anomalous version of myself that is not myself. So when I realized the pain of not being myself is bigger than the reward that this state has to offer, I decided that it is an unintelligent decision to continue in this state of the resignation. But that is a choice I had to make. So you or your avoidant person That's a choice they have to make. They have to choose life. To choose life is to choose pain, is to choose to recognize the guilt of letting yourself down, of being responsible for imprisoning yourself. Because nobody else is in charge. It's only you and your body. But the body, it gets addicted. It gets addicted to doing the same things over and over again. So therefore it requires willpower. Now, not everybody has the same willpower, but everybody has the ability to reflect, to think about their actions, to think about the consequences of such. So if you know somebody who is perpetually self-isolating, that's somebody who doesn't really self-reflect. They're not really aware of the consequences of that action. They're not thinking long-term. They're thinking short-term. Instant gratification. Just like an alcoholic, they're thinking, just one more hit. Just one more shutdown. Just one more disappearance. And they keep doing this over and over, not wanting to think about what's going to happen 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, if they don't stop now. Because that's what they have to do, to stop now, right? It's not after the next drink that you stop. You stop now. You don't even get to the next drink. Because if you keep telling yourself, yeah, one more drink, it's going to be one more drink over and over. Yeah, you are dealing with an addict. But the addiction, what feeds it? What feeds it is reward. So you have to ask the addict, how is the addiction working for you? What do you gain from it? Make a list, pros and cons. This is what the addiction gets me. This is why I get so many rewards of self-isolation. And then make a list. What are the negative consequences if you continue to self-isolate as you've been doing before for the next 3 years? What's going to happen? Not for the next week, not for the next month, next 3 years. Because if you're not thinking long term, you're not going to care, because the negative consequences of the next week and the next month of self-isolating are next to zero. Zero. This is why it's usually difficult for people to quit, because they're not thinking about the future. So, do you want a list? What do I think are the negative consequences going to be? Okay, very easy. If you self-isolate for the next 3 years and you continue to do that, then you will feel anxiety and stress always around the corner. There will always be stress. There will always be fear of rejection. So you live a life in fear. What does it mean to live in fear? It means that you cannot be yourself. You are constantly stifled. You're constantly feeling trapped. You need space. You need independence, because you're not independent. Your actions are not your own when fear is driving the show. So therefore, for the next 3 years, whenever you self-isolate, you're not there. It's like you're dead. So you're not really living. What are the negative consequences of being dead? Well, you have to ask yourself, what are the good things in life that you're not getting? Human connection, intimacy, being seen, aka having your needs met. Most of the time, if somebody has managed to self-isolate over and over, it's because they're not even aware of their needs. They don't even know what they're missing. to fulfill a need to be seen is to feel important. To feel important is to feel happy, to feel joy. Joy, that's quite addictive, if I would say so. There are many drugs in life that self-isolation is denying you. The drug of oxytocin, serotonin, which is the happiness hormone, oxytocin, which is the cuddling hormone. You are not getting melatonin production so much because you're not really relaxed. You are in a freeze response. Freeze response causes contractions throughout your body on a micro level, which means your body is pressured. This pressure, it drains the energy. So your energy levels will be chronically down. This is how many people develop autoimmune, eczema, inflammation, psoriasis, all kinds of conditions, because their body is in a perpetual state of shutdown. Why? Because there is a mindset behind self-isolation. What is the mindset that fuels it? The mindset is usually dealing with people, dealing with life. It doesn't really work out for me. I have to not deal with people to get what I want. I have to not deal with people as much as possible. I have to avoid being vulnerable. I have to avoid being present. I have to avoid being seen. I have to avoid joy, happiness, connection, and love. And then I get what I want, which of course is ludicrous. You're not getting anything. So what are you getting really? Nothing. You're getting safety. The reptile brain is happy. And if you watch my previous video on emotion unavailability, I mentioned before, there is a video online in which a professor says the reptile brain always wins. Because unless you are doing a lot of work to strengthen the identity, you've been working with identity disorder, or you've been doing identity reconstruction, or some kind of therapy to just strengthen your sense of self and your self-esteem, unless you've been doing that, then this part of the brain is very weak. The frontal lobe is determined by your sense of self. Your sense of self is how you look at yourself. How you look at yourself is how you look at other people. So whatever you project onto other people, unconsciously, that's going to be you. So if you are unstable, if you are unpredictable, if you are somebody who self-isolates frequently, that makes you unstable by default, by definition, then you will project that other people are going to do the same to you, so they're not to be trusted. They're not safe to attach to, because they're going to self-isolate eventually, right? They're going to abandon you like you abandon yourself, so there's no point. Which is why I call this Vetiko, flesh-eating spirit. It's a self-perpetuating mechanism. It's a loop in the brain. It tries to recreate the childhood environment over and over again, like a projector. So, anyways. Anything else that you want to know about this? Just checking the comments. No, nothing. But you know, it's interesting because I think self-isolation is quite common. Like there's actually many people who have this condition who self-isolate quite a lot frequently. Well, I used to live in self-isolation. Like self-isolation used to be my life. I have a 12th house stellium, which is ironic, you know, because many presidents of America have 12th house sons. I am a 12th house son. How can that be? Somebody who is completely in the eyes of the public has their son in the house of isolation. Because as you can see now, I make videos almost daily. So I'm always in the eyes of the public now. But when I was 17 until 21, I didn't even go out to buy groceries. I was literally just hiding completely. I would never go out. I couldn't even go to the grocery shops. Too much anxiety. So how did I get out of that? Well, I just took care of my health. I just decided to stop, I guess. People think there's some kind of a magical pill, some kind of a secret formula. Oh, if I just find out this secret technique of how to stop myself from doing this self-sabotaging behavior, then I can finally stop. No. Unfortunately, there's no such thing. There's no magic pill, no secret, no technique. You just have to do it. You just have to do what you want to do. And that's what I always say, do what you want to do. But do you know what you want? Do you want to live in self-isolation and suffer all the consequences of that action? Then keep doing it. But if you don't want to do it, why would you do something you don't want to do? You see, this is like a red pill or a black pill. I don't know. But this is the pill of all pills, for me at least it has been. People always do what they want. Okay? If you observe somebody engaging in self-sabotaging behavior, in addictions, in avoidance, in pushing you away, in abandoning you, in abandoning themselves, that's what they want. Oh, but how can that be? No, 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 no. Well, it is possible that they don't know what they want, or they are dissociated from their wants. Because want is ruled by Mars in astrology. Check out your natal chart or the chart of your avoidant person and look at Mars. Is Mars strong? Is Mars in a good position? How is it? Because Mars is about doing what you want, and self-isolation is a form of not doing what you want. Nobody wants to avoid doing what they want. I mean, to self-isolate is to separate yourself from a situation, to avoid. So you're not working towards it. You're not moving towards something. Desire, it moves you towards something. Self-isolation moves you away from something. Therefore, it is the opposite of desire. Okay? Somebody who self-isolates is not doing what they want. Of course, I said earlier, I know we do what we want, but they think they want to self-isolate, but no, they don't. They're living in their head, you see. They're analyzing their actions. They're trying to control their actions through their brain. Self-isolating people are trying to be rational, logical about the decisions. They're not allowing themselves to be in their body. They are being in their head, trying to control. Okay? So I hope it makes sense. So in any case, that's my video on self-isolation. Now, if you found this video helpful, please leave a like and subscribe. If you're interested in my astrology readings or in my other services, you can check out at my description below, where you find the links to my services. And if you're interested in a reading, you can message me at any given time. With that being said, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.